Hey, how you doing?
So I'm doing well, thank you. So as I said in the group, this call will be around us meeting in New York in a promotion summit, and then so we start with your story and your story about your AI app. Uh, so we
Sure.
can share your story or what you did, how you can help us or help everyone watching to improve their apps. And of
Yep.
course, for the members watching, drop your questions in the message box. Moyo will answer them.
That sounds good. That sounds good. And I guess for me in the message box too, it would be good just to know where everybody is at with the business right now, maybe how long you've been doing it, if you're on Android, iOS, or and just context.
Give us some context, guys. Couple of lines.
Yeah.
Doesn't hurt.
Hey guys.
I I can also uh I can also say something. Nice to hear you. I read your story. Congratulations.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
I believe we spoke a little bit also in Bashir community before, because
Yeah.
we also have a few AI apps, and like also different directions. So it would be cool to listen to you. Maybe like share some life hacks, maybe some tips. So yeah,
Cool.
I think we work in like kind of a similar direction. So yep, I wish you really good uh, time and just cool presentation.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, definitely. I wish you all the same. All the same.
Guys, if you are shy, just drop some context in the text box. Yeah,
Oh yeah, and so Bashir, should I start now or
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. It's being
okay,
recorded.
cool. So welcome everybody, either on the call or in the future on the recording. So I'm Moyo Okome. I live in New York. I've been doing this mobile app stuff since probably around 2011. So I started in like a different era of the App Store. And at that time, it was more of the Wild West. You can do almost anything. And,
Which year
you
was that?
know, 2011, I think, yeah, it was, I think my first app went live in 2011 or 2012.
Right.
So at that time, you were really able to, I didn't even use any advertising, and I was still able to, get I had a whole bunch of apps because I would just publish constantly. It was the time when people would publish clones and reskin with barely even making changes. I always tried to add some value to all of the apps that I created, but it was still the bar for what you could get away with was much lower than it is
And are we
current.
talking iOS and Android or Android only, or what did you
Yeah.
do?
I was at that time I was iOS only. Now I'm
Yeah.
on both, but iOS is my focus.
So it was like iPhone 3.5-inch screen. So only small iPhones back then. One screen.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. Yeah, it was a big deal when they started to get bigger.
Yeah.
Um
Messed up everything. Yeah.
And even the way that they laid out like the search results was different. They had at that time, I think if you search for something on the App Store, you would see like 5 to 7 results, all as narrow, I don't know what you call them, but it was before they changed them to cards.
Yeah.
So if you ranked as number 4 or 5 on the result, it still meant something.
Yeah.
And so I like the my first month on the store, I probably made 40 dollars, but it was so exciting. I think I had a racing game. I had two things. One was a typing game that I'd modeled off of a Yahoo app. Um we used to play this game called Word Racer, so I created a game called Type Racer. That was the first one. And then there was a game, I tried to make it like Mario Kart, except it was 2D.
What did you use? Which technology? Like a Cocoa 2D or something?
I think that was done in Objective-C actually. So I wasn't doing the programming myself. I was working with folks that I found on Upwork,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And the guy who helped me with
Yeah.
the racing game, I think somebody's unmuted.
Yeah, I did mute him. Go ahead.
The the
Sorry.
the guy who helped me with the racing game was a student, so it was a lot cheaper, but it just took a long time to get everything done. So, I learned something in that experience. But he was great to work with, and it still ended up being a profitable project. I tried all kinds of different marketing tricks and stuff. Um, but I guess eventually what I learned going through that was that I could use ASO I could use ASO to get a lot of downloads and make money. At the peak
ASO
of
was a
that,
piece of cake back then also, right?
yes. So for example, there was a time where, I had all of these apps, and then one day I just saw one of my apps shooting up, and I said, okay, like what's going on? Why is this happening? And then I realized that it was because it had some keywords about like Temple Run somewhere in there, and Temple Run 2 had just come out. So there were all these searches for Temple Run. So it started getting a lot of down because it was ranking, I guess, fairly well on the keywords. So I said, okay, that's interesting. And so I started trying to put the words Temple Run into any, I had a lot of apps, so I could put them into any apps I could find. Apple kind of caught on, so they started stopping me. So I started trying to get more clever. So I would eventually I came out with this app that was called I called it a bike race of Ninja Temple. So I was trying to target Temple Run, Ninja Bike, which was or Bike Racer, which was a big app at the time, and something else. And it worked, and that app actually ended up going to the top 10. I did some other things as well. I had integrated this service which allowed for concurrent two-player play. It was called I can't remember, but that helped a lot. So between that and like all the ASO hacks, that app actually went to the top 10. So it was making like thousands of dollars a day.
Okay.
Um
From
I
ads or
Yeah,
the game.
mostly
Okay.
mostly ads. I had in-app purchases so people could buy like different different bikes and stuff or different characters.
Which year are we talking right now? 2000
Th-
something? Year.
Yeah, this is like 2013, 2012,
Okay.
2013, so still early times. So at that time, it went up. I actually, so I got interviewed for TechCrunch by that. Um, the guy who had built the API for the two-player gaming, he had given me some good advice. He was like, "Look, you're getting all these downloads. You should try to um dial back on the ads and make sure that you funnel these users into other apps and try to create something more long term." I said, listen, I'm making a lot of money. I love this. I'm not turning it off. But I guess a couple of years later, I saw kind of what Ketchup did, and they had all of these minimalistic games, and they would just push the traffic from one app to another, and then they created something that sold for a lot. And then Voodoo kind of did the same thing. And I said, okay, I really made a big mistake then, but hey, you live and you learn. But yeah, I guess just fast forwarding to the future, because I don't want to talk about that old stuff. So the app game changed a lot. Um, during I guess a few years ago, before the pandemic, I just reached a point where all the stuff that I had, so I sold my portfolio in 2015. It had already started to decline a bit in terms of downloads and revenue, but it was still, I was still able to sell it for a few $100,000, right?
Okay.
When I had first started getting offers for the whole thing, I was getting much bigger offers, but
How many apps did you have in that portfolio back then?
there were a lot. I want to say I want to say there were probably between 80 and 100 apps, right? Not all of them
Okay.
were productive.
Okay.
Like even though there were a lot of apps, the revenue was, it's the whole 80/20 rule. A
Yeah.
lot of them just did very, very little, and some of them were very consistent performers.
How much was
Um,
that per month? Like 10K a month revenue wise from
so
ads?
at its peak, it was more like 30. By the
30K.
time I
Okay.
sold it, it was probably down to like 10.
Okay. How
Between
much did
ads.
that get you? Like 200,000, 150,000?
So I'll say multiple. I'll say multiple six figures.
Okay.
I'll say that. Um, but yeah, it was a good chunk of change, but it wasn't enough, clearly to stop working or anything like that.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but I definitely developed some bad habits by just having, you get used to money just flowing in. And so I wasn't as intense about just developing new apps and trying to,
Products. Yeah.
yeah, to make the, I got a little bit lazy. And the market changed on me, and I, I'd sold it, and then after I sold it, I tried to start like
Something
five to
new.
seven different businesses at the same time.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
Yeah.
Because I was like, okay, I sold for this amount. If I had more businesses, I can sell them all. But the problem is like none of them were really doing enough to be significant.
Because of lack of
Um,
focus. Yeah.
yeah. It's a constant thing that we have to fight. So um in 2020, like end of 2019, 2020, I figured out, okay, I'm gonna have to go get a job because I'm not doing enough to sustain my lifestyle. um I'd gone to a coding boot camp for data science. I ended up going to Netflix.
Right.
So that was good in terms of just helping me to financially get back in a great place, and then be able to clear my mind and like get set up again. So all the while I was doing my stuff on the side, but with less pressure, and I got some apps going and making revenue again. And I guess fast forward to right now. When the AI stuff started happening, I just started getting interested in playing around. I think the first app that I tried to do was an AI art generator, just because I saw, I think I look at the marketplace the same way you do. I look at I use tools like data.ai, and I look at the top grossing in different categories and just see who's moving around, how many apps are there of this type. Um, and then I'll also try to cross-reference with tools like I use Mobile Action, but you can use any kind of ASO tool.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I'm looking at for demand for the main keyword, and then also are there like keywords that I can compete for? So what I'll typically do, like with this AI stuff, for example. So my first AI app was just a AI art generator. That one is those at the top, they're ones like Wonder, and I think Arta is one right now. Those are extremely lucrative, but it's extremely competitive. Then I saw headshots come along, and it was still lucrative in terms of there were some players making a lot of money. And I also like that it was something that had a real use in terms of, pe people have been getting headshots forever, for especially if you're in like real estate or actors, but there are lots of people that actually need headshots and pay lots of money for them.
Mhm.
So I saw this being an actual thing rather than just it can be fun, but there's also a real use case.
Yeah.
And then I also saw that there were some on the web, like there was a product called Headshots Pro. I learned about it on Twitter, I think, and there was one called Photo.ai. That wasn't that one's more towards the art side, but and then I saw some other ones on the web, and people were paying real money, and the products were getting better and better. So I said, okay, this might be better to focus on, because it just seemed like the competitiveness for a lot of the keywords were things that where I might be able to rank better than just going for like AI art.
Yeah.
And so that proved to be um pretty true. And right now I get a lot of organic traffic for my AI headshots app. I mean, it's gotten more and more competitive since I started, but you know, the earlier you are on a trend like that, if you're able to make revenue against these keywords, then
Yeah.
you'll tend to be a little bit sticky and have an advantage over people that are newer, unless they're spending money.
Are you running
Um,
any ads right now?
so not for that app. I haven't run ads for that yet. I want to. I guess I've kind of I'm running ads for another app, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
I just being that I'm spending my money, you know, I
Mm-hmm.
do it all off my Amex. I'm profitable against that app, so um I kind of like I know how to buy ads. I still want to scale it.
Yeah.
But if I were to start running experiments on the headshots, I probably need to dial back on the other app, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just because of where I am right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me take you one step backwards. So,
yeah.
can you tell us, are you building apps for yourself or hiring people?
Oh, I'm hiring people. I'm
Okay.
hiring people.
Maybe some of the watchers are not technical. So, can you tell us about your hiring process? Like, how do you
Sh-
find the people?
Sure,
And what is the
sure.
average price you are dealing with? How much do you pay them?
Yeah,
Give
yeah.
us some rough numbers and examples.
Sure, sure. So right now, um, when I try to when I build an app, I have a team that I'm consistently working with in Turkey that just works for me right now.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
know that for most apps it's gonna cost me like between 3 to 5 to put out like a good quality MVP that, you know, has some features, but it's not shaking the world, but I
Yeah.
can put it out there and it's something that I can probably monetize.
Yeah.
And I've always, even earlier on, I was always trying to keep my costs low.
Mm.
That was always a main concern of mine. So I just try to spend as little as I can, while putting out something that, you know, is decent quality. So in terms of my initial process in terms of finding people is different from what I do now. I don't really try to find people now. I just work with
Yeah.
who I'm already working with.
Obviously. Yeah.
But back then, what I would do is I would put out a post on Upwork.
Mm.
I would make it pretty simple. So let's say it was for a headshots app. I would say um I might not even expose the whole thing
Yeah.
on Upwork just in case other
Do you
marketers will look.
prepare wireframes for them, for example?
Yes,
Wire.
yes.
How do
My
you do about the
wireframe.
design? Yeah.
What's that?
How do you do about the design? Like who do the design for you? Who does the design
Got it,
for you?
got it, got it. Okay, so let me take a step back. And there are a couple different ways that I did this, but so I'll go into Upwork and just say I'm looking for an app, and I might say I'm looking for an app in the photography category, on, you know, the level of quality of, and I pull some examples and just put the links in and just keep it very brief. Put the post out, see who applies. If people don't have a work history, I would probably get rid of them. If people have a rating below 4 stars, I would probably get rid of them. And I would see how many candidates I end up with, and then just start trying to, you know, I'll start trying to feel them out, reach out to the people who I think are the top in terms of the portfolio that they have. I try to not work with like big agencies for the most part because, you know, a lot of times you're paying for the infrastructure there. So I would try to find somebody who seems like they're smart and passionate, but they're working for themselves. And then, you know, you never know, no matter what they say on the site, you never know who you're dealing with until you actually work with them.
Yeah.
So I try to just create something very small scope initially, have them turn it around quickly, and see how that goes. And
Mhm.
either I'm moving on to the next person after that, and you don't have, just because you hire somebody, you don't necessarily need to close the job. So if that one didn't work out, I can maybe move on to the next person and try interviewing them and hiring them. And that's kind of how I did it. And then what would happen is that after we complete an entire project, I can just assess how did that go, how do they are they timely? Do they have the skills that they said they had? Are they, thinking of ideas that I didn't think of and presenting them? And so I'll decide to either double down on them or go find somebody new. Then in terms of the design, I tried to keep that as simple as possible. I wasn't going and like designing the whole app in Figma or anything. I was just figure out what is the main functionality that I need to have in this and just try to really draw, I'll look at the top 3 or 5 apps that are doing what I want to do. I'll figure out like what is the core thing that needs to happen, and then I'll try to draw out those screens on a piece of paper. And that was that was the way I would do my wireframes. Then I had an artist that was working for me, so he would turn it into a UI, and then we would give that UI to whichever developer I was working with. So after a while, I just had my core team of people.
Yeah.
Now the team that I work with they have their own designers and
Okay.
developers, so that allows me to worry about less of that, which is nice. But if I didn't have them, I guess I'd probably be doing the same thing that I was.
Can we go back to the designer part? Can you tell
Mhm.
us roughly how much does it cost to hire a designer for your app? Like how much did you pay, for example? Like
Um,
on an average app, not a fancy one, but normal price.
yeah, well, so right, it's I can't even remember. So right now I have a designer that um I pay him between like $700 to $1,200, kind of
Mm-hmm.
depending on what's going on for the month.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I'll just pay him I just keep him on a monthly basis, and he does work for me.
Okay.
And that's my main person. That's outside of the outside of the team I talked about. He's just been
Yeah.
working with me for years and years. Um, but I feel like I would try to just keep it below $1,000 for my
Okay.
initial project.
Including the screenshots and logo or without?
Um, so when I first started, I wasn't designing screenshots. I would just take shot,
Screenshot. Yeah, I know what you mean.
literally take screenshots of the screen. After a while, I think that those can be gotten pretty cheaply on something like, you know, it, I would just have it all included in the same.
Yeah.
If they're gonna design the screenshots, I would have them included in one price.
Okay.
So let's say, okay, I'm going to pay you, um, let's say it was $900. I would want the screenshots to be part of that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
something you can negotiate. I don't like paying for like piecemeal, this that like the first project I ever did, I did on a hourly basis,
Okay.
and then I figured out right after that project that I never wanted to do that again. I
Yeah.
more so want them to just quote me, hey, based on what you're asking for, this is what I can do for you, and then it either works for me or it doesn't.
Okay.
And then I don't have to be monitoring what somebody's doing all the time. I mean, I'll need to be checking in with them to make sure it doesn't take like,
Yeah, it's a result-based compensation, so
yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have to
I
babysit
think
him.
that it works much better for this remote kind of working.
So
Um,
we spoke about you hiring someone to develop it, you hiring a designer, and then you do the publishing in the App Store, and then obviously you do your launch. How do you do about your first 10 reviews for each app?
for I tend I just reach out to people that I know for those. Um,
Okay.
I'll even get my mom. She
Okay.
does, actually my mom uses a lot of my stuff just 'cause she's supportive. But
Okay.
my wife, I'm like, hey, what time it is, time to review. My kids don't have phones yet, but once
Okay.
they do, hey, get on that phone review. And anybody I know, I'll reach out to them and just what people that I know that I can ask, people who are like close to me and who've maybe they work on stuff like this, they'll just help me out like that. Or
Okay.
I'll go into you know, anybody who I know I can make an easy ask, I'll ask.
Yes. Okay.
And
So
then
now I will take you to the part where we have the reviews, the screenshots, everything is
Mhm.
looking beautiful. How do you do about making the decision which channel to advertise into? Like ASA, what's your decision flow? Can you describe it
got
to me?
got it. So in terms of advertising, I've experimented with a few different channels.
Okay. Tell us
So
about that.
that's Meta, ASA, TikTok at one point. But at this point, I've kind of decided that it's better for me to just stick with what I know, and it either works or it doesn't. So I use Meta primarily,
Mhm.
just because I'm familiar with it. You know, I kind of know I know how to work the channel.
Mhm.
And um yeah, even though it doesn't work for everything, I know that, hey, like people are spending $1 quadrillion on Meta right now.
Yeah.
So like there are people out there making this work. Let me just use this. And being that I'm one person, I don't want to spread myself too thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, CPIs are crazy now. Oh,
AI
got
apps, yeah, it's a suicide, of course.
you. Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
do you use any MMP connected to your
I, I don't. So I've
advertisement
tried
effort?
it before, and I found that it didn't help. It just created more another layer of complexity for me. I
Okay.
think
How do you track
I
performance? So you just have one channel, so you know your traffic
yes,
is coming from there. You don't have to worry about where it's
yeah,
coming
yeah,
from.
yeah. So I'm
Okay.
since I'm only spending on Meta, you know, I look at all of the dashboards and stuff, but then ultimately, at the bottom line, you have to know how much you're spending, how much you're making. Does this make sense? So, you know, that's the top.
What do you use for revenue? Like sorry for interrupting. Like to
Yeah, go
monitor
ahead.
your revenue, like you use revenue cat, for example. What do you use?
Yeah, I do use Revenue Cat. I use Revenue Cat, and then of
That's your
course
main, or you have something else? What did you test?
that's my main that I'm looking at on a day-to-day basis. But then,
Okay.
you know, I also have to look at App Store Connect and just see, hey,
That's
you
two
know,
days of delay, I think, right?
in terms
Almost.
of revenue,
Yeah.
no,
Or,
it's you see it the next day.
okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, you see it the next day. So you know, I'll be looking at Revenue Cat consistently, but let's say where that can, I guess, be off if there are refunds and stuff. You know, the numbers change, and then the way that Revenue Cat has their time zone set up, it's a little bit different
Yeah.
um
They don't
from
have a
App
time
Store.
zone settings. I don't
They
know. I didn't.
it's so it's funny for the graph. You actually can't. I don't know why they do this, but you can't change the time zone setting of the graph unless I'm just, you know, out of my
Okay.
mind. But I've looked for it, and
Okay.
um yeah, maybe someday they'll do that, but to my
Okay.
knowledge, it does. Yeah, but
So.
so Revenue Cat's what I look at
Mhm.
most often. But then, you know, I just want to make sure that the actual matches up to what I think I'm seeing in Revenue Cat, you know, at the end of the day. So even though I'm not looking at App Store Connect all the time, I'll go check in there and just see what does it say, and then what did I actually get deposited after the end of the period.
By
Right.
the way, since Max mentioned the CPI, how is the API cost for the AI app? Which API are you using for the headshot?
Got it. So there's one called Astria that I'm using.
Okay.
And you know, it's fairly, I'll say this AI stuff is more costly than any other API I ever used. I think their costs are fairly reasonable. So I use them, and then there's another one. These guys that were emailing me called, oh, shit, what is it called? I can't remember, but the
That's fine.
costs, it was like a company out of somewhere in Asia, I think.
They offer
And
something cheaper.
what's that?
You
What'd
mean
you
they
say?
offered something cheaper?
Yeah, the costs were looking good, but I haven't done my due diligence to see if the company is good. So
Okay.
the first API that I had used was called Stable Diffusion API. The costs were quite good, but then I would have errors all the time. The thing would be down, and this was a guy, young developer in India, ambitious entrepreneur, but he didn't seem to realize that it was important to keep his service
Yeah.
like at a high, you
Availability.
know, yeah, high availability.
Yeah.
And so he'd be arguing with me about, oh no, it's fine. And I'm like, No,
Mm.
look at my customers complaint, it's down. So, yeah, the cost was great there, and the output of that API I actually liked a lot, but um,
Yeah.
the reliability was horrible.
Okay, so let me
Australia has been,
summarize.
what's
Yeah, go
that?
ahead. So
No,
I'm
I
gonna
said,
summarize.
oh
I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah. Okay,
summarize a
you
little
go
bit.
ahead. You go ahead.
You hired your team, you developed your app, you hired a designer for the screenshot in the app, you started advertising in Meta since you know beta on Meta.
Oh, sorry. So for the headshots app,
Yeah,
I haven't advertised yet.
not yet. So it's 5K organic.
Yeah, and it's not consistently 5K. So
It's up and down. Yeah, I know.
yeah, it's up, and I actually I had some great results initially, and then I hit a period where I was having a lot of bugs in my app,
Okay, so
and
people will cancel. Yeah,
well, it wasn't, I didn't even have subscriptions initially. At first it was just one time,
yeah,
and I think it was around the time when we were implementing that there was a mistake made, and so I just got hit with a flood of terrible reviews, and so
yeah,
that also tanked the traction of that the app was
yeah,
getting.
yeah.
But I think I think it was also converting better with one-time payments, which makes sense. So something that I do want to test with this app is doing, going back to one-time payments that are higher, like a higher dollar value, but then having a subscription that has lower pricing. I've noticed that the ones on the web are most of them are just one-time payments. They're just a lot higher.
Yeah.
And there are people definitely succeeding with that model. I know, apps in the web are always different, but it's something that I definitely want to, I always believe it doesn't hurt to experiment, and then if it doesn't work, you just go back to what you were doing before.
So I have one question at this point.
Mhm.
I missed this question before, which is why did you take the decision to start your software as a native mobile app and not a web and then upgrade to a mobile app? What's the decision flow behind this? Like, is it skill wise? Is it less expensive for you to start a mobile app? How did you take
Got it.
this
Got it.
decision?
It's more so just because I would say it's just because of the folks I have working with me right now, and how they work, what they're used to. If I were to if I wanted to do it on the web, I would probably need to go to somebody else. Um,
Yeah,
Either that or just invest the time with them in learning, okay, this is how we're going to do it. These are the tools we're going to use. So
yeah.
it's not even that. It might be a better, it might be easier or better to go on the web, but I'm just kind of inertia.
Okay. So I can
Um,
go now to the next point, which is now we described all the decision and everything external to the app. So let's go inside the app. Can you describe, are you using, for example, an onboarding? What's the logic behind your onboarding? In your
yeah,
successful app, it doesn't have to be about the AI app. Can you
got it.
describe, can you tell us a couple of points that you saw that they made a difference for you? Like, wow, this
Yeah,
is
yeah.
go. Yeah, yeah, tell us.
Definitely. Um, there's another app. This one's it's a coloring app. And so this one has, it's done well for me over the years. And in on the onboarding, initially I didn't have an onboarding. Initially, it would just pop up the payment screen, and people would either exit out or pay.
Yeah,
And believe it or not, that worked for this. And I think it's just because it was in a niche that um wasn't well served, so people were willing to do that. But I found that when I put in a couple of onboarding screens, retention improved. I assume just people just don't like to get smacked in the face with an ad as the first thing. So I put in the kind of like standard 3 screens, and it would just talk about different benefits of the app and then introduce the paywall. And so that worked better. Then another thing that I did with the paywall was I saw an article somewhere about a payment ramp, and I forget where this was, but basically the guy was just talking about reframing the free trial as a benefit. Let me let me find the wording. Oh shit. I'm trying to see where I have it. But oh yeah, give me 1 second. I want to go find the wording of this, but
Okay.
it's just rather than saying, hey, use this free trial, I think it's now framed as claim your free week.
Okay.
And that actually converted significantly better.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting sometimes how you can just play with words and play with language, and that made I can't remember the percentage difference, but it was significant. Um Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can find this so I can put it on the
Let's
screen for you.
try. Yeah. But we get the main idea.
Yeah, you know what? What I'll do is I'll share it in the group later on.
Share it in the group. That's much better. Yes.
Yeah.
So tell us about the tracking inside the app. So what do you do for tracking? How you structure your tracking? Which
Got it,
tools
got
do
it.
you use? Stuff like that.
Yeah. So I started after I watched your interview with Steve, I started using Smart Look and Crisp Chat. That's only in one of my apps right now, but it's kind of just nice to see what people are doing, how they're behaving in the app. Um, I use Amplitude in order to have some different events and have a funnel, see where people drop off, understand the retention. Um, it's good. I don't have it in all my apps, but I have it in a few of them, and that's been good. Um, I use Revenue Cat all the time
Do
now.
you do any A/B testing?
I don't. I don't do A/B testing. I was actually talking to a guy that I met at the App Promotion Summit from Adaptee,
Yeah.
and he was just talking about how their tool helps you with A/B testing on the paywall. So I thought that sounds pretty interesting.
You can
Do you,
do it. You can do it with the revenue cut. With revenue cut, you can do A/B testing for the pricing, and so it's A/B testing different products in the paywall.
yeah.
In my last experiment, I did plus 80% LTV. So
Really?
you can understand the gap. I'm trying to take screenshot and send it over.
Wow. That's
So
amazing. That was
um,
just a pricing test?
yeah, so pricing and product. I'm gonna drop
Nice.
it in the chat now. I'm trying to drop it in the chat so everyone can keep the screenshot. It was my most successful A/B test.
Yeah, that's also, and was that across like a significant amount of traffic?
Let me give you the exact number. So we had 34 days as the duration, 2,000 something customer for each variation for A and B. So it's total
Okay.
4,000. So
Yeah.
I only turned off after like this significant amount of data. I'm trying to see if I can drop anything in the chat.
That's an awesome test.
And I did like 15 experimentation in the last couple of months to make sure that I'm on the safe side. So I have this screenshot. It's in the chat. You can see the difference. So it's 81% LTV, extra LTV, with only testing different pricing in the paywall. So it's the same paywall, and that's your 81% of increase.
Yeah, that's clear. Wow.
So and this is called experiment in revenue cut. You can run experiments. You can so obviously connect your products, organize them, and based on different assumptions, you start experiment which one is the first, and then you test that. Give it a couple of days, and then test the pricing after seeing who's. So there is different assumptions you can test. Paying paid. So I had a paid a yearly and free trial for the weekly.
Yeah.
Obviously, the free trial for the weekly won, and then I started experimenting on the pricing for the free trial weekly. And from that moment, I had this discovery.
Which app was this for?
This is an AI chatbot.
Okay, okay. And so with the free trial, so I guess how much uh h- so when I guess I'm just thinking about the people who don't convert.
Yeah.
So is that not too costly? Um
No, it does. So this experiment I ran on organic traffic. So
okay.
34 days ads turned off. So I took the risk, you know. So I have some
Yeah,
organic
yeah.
traffic coming in with a
Yeah.
little bit of Apple Search Ads Basic, $1
Yep.
target per install, not more. So if there is installs or not, so it's a ASA basic $1 cost. So and you keep it there. I target USA, Canada, Brazil, I think Mexico or not. I'm not sure. So I have my list of countries where I know my revenue is coming from. So I
Yeah.
check them in ASA and I just set it to run.
Got
And
it, got it.
so that's $1. So maybe they spend $30 each 2 weeks. You know, it's not that
Yeah,
much
yeah, yeah.
traffic, but it has a good impact on your visibility. You know.
Got it, got it, got it. I guess for context, why I was asking. So, for example, in my headshots app, if somebody generates a set of headshots, I think the the um the variable cost to me each time is going to be a couple dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, when I think about giving people a free trial for that, it's just hard for me to think about because if they don't convert, then it just ends up being very costly. Whereas I have, there are other apps where I really don't have per user costs like that, where it's much easier to say, okay, sure, free trial, just as a conversion tactic. But I guess the numbers must just work well for a case like this.
I did also see some people doing a free trial button, but the product is paid.
Oh,
So they use
well, I'm not
uh,
getting into those games.
people refund at the end of the day because they
Yeah,
receive the
yeah,
email
yeah.
with the link. You know, there is
Yeah.
different games. So back to your projects, how do you communicate usually with your developers? Do you have like a software management project management tool like Trello, or what do you use exactly to ticket everything?
I'm using Slack primarily. In the
So you
past,
chat with them. Yeah.
yeah, in the past, I've used Asana.
Mhm.
Um, when I wanted to be, yeah, I guess it's good. I can set up each project and be very organized. But lately, I've just been using Slack.
Okay. I've been using ClickUp. They have a very good free solution, so you can upgrade
Look
later.
up.
But ClickUp.
Okay, yeah, I've used that once before, but
Mhm.
I think I was in somebody's course and they had it in there.
Yeah, it's a free almost forever if you don't store huge files in the platform. So only
Nice.
text and screenshots, it will be free forever. And you can host your content in Google Drive. They have pretty good previews, and they have very good previews if you include a long video. So in my tickets, I include a long video where I record me speaking to the developer, and I show them. where is the change they should do. So they have
Yeah.
a very good preview. So
Okay, I'm seeing that there's a question. Do I allow users to generate unlimited headshots? Especially they cost you $1.50 per fine tune. No, I don't. So the way it's structured now for me is so for on the weekly plan, they'll just get um one a week, and if they want more, then they'll get a one-time payment. Um, it for me, it's like not the best setup in the world in terms of, just being a straightforward offer that's understandable. But I haven't, I guess some complaints. I haven't gotten a ton of complaints. Why not use your own hosted server? I guess I could. I would just have to figure out how to do it. So if you yeah, I haven't looked into it. So um
I mean, you can ask your dev team to set it up for you. It's not that expensive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'll look into it actually. I think it's probably worthwhile, especially since we're investing more time in this app. But yeah, for getting started, um, how many renewed do I have on a week? I don't have the number on the top of my head, but I think the majority of I think a lot of people cancel, but then some people stay on. Um, some people keep using it, some people just forget. I actually don't like having products where the majority of users are just forgotten. I don't think that that's the most sustainable way to operate, but yeah, I'm still kind of like working on this model.
Guys, let's move to the question part. Anyone who has a question, please write it down in the chat, either to Mo or on general. So any question related to the SaaS apps world, please write it down in the chat.
Yeah,
I think Hisham told me he has a question. Please write it down. Let's see
I'll-
if we can help. Yeah, go ahead, Mayo.
oh no, I said I'll also say, um, I have another for my other AI art generator that has a different payment structure, and I feel like that one has gotten it's gotten less complaints. So the way that that one is people who buy a subscription,
Yeah.
um the subscription is really just giving you a discount on the one-time payment. So like for
Mhm.
example, if somebody's paying like let's say 30 or $40 for the year, they'll pay that, and then that discounts like 20 or 50% off of the cost of buying an individual buying any of the in-app purchases really. And interestingly enough, I get almost no complaints about that one. I didn't I didn't think people would love it, but that app also doesn't get as much traffic and hasn't had as many problems with errors. But yeah, I don't know. It's just another way that things could be priced. I also noticed that there's some competitors in the space that um they do use free trials and on their weekly plans or monthly or yearly, and they'll do like 6.99. Some of them are like only promoting 6.99 weekly, and I think they do give unlimited images, but I think there's like another way of generating um headshots where they're not actually doing fine tuning, and the results that I've seen aren't great, but um it's
Mm.
working for people, so it is it's another option. I think it's called Face ID. At least I think that's what Astria calls it. So I haven't tried that out in my own apps, but it's something else for
Okay,
it's
Moyo,
something yeah.
we have a question in the chat. Can you try answer that, and I will give my input after you.
How frequently do I launch new apps? I don't I guess I don't look at it that way. Um Launching 2 to 3 apps monthly and seeing what works. Um, I guess if you can, the problem there is going to be being able to focus and make the adjustments you need to make in order to get good traction. because a lot of times things just don't work straight out of the gate, and you have to iterate and invest into it before you'll actually see that traction. Sometimes they do, but it's more rare. But that's kind of how I used to operate. I would just kind of put as much out as I can, see what's working, and then double down.
Okay, let me answer Sataya, I think, in his question. I think he didn't check the app idea research section in the classroom. I don't think that you have to invest your time in 3 apps each month. It's better to have one good idea backed by data and then develop that since you are a developer and launch it. So please go check the classroom section for the app idea research. There is 5 different ways where you can see how to research app ideas backed by data, and you don't have to waste your time putting 3 apps in the store each month without getting any revenue. So go check that. Let's move to Nikita question,
Yeah,
which
and
is a technical one.
I'll just agree with that. Anything that I launch, I've always done some research to make sure that people are making money on similar apps,
Mhm.
and then nowadays I also just try to look at the competitive aspect and
Yeah.
try to make sure that it's likely that I can compete.
So you use
In
data AI, you said, Moyo, right?
Data.ai. I use mobile action in terms of
Okay.
the keyword stuff.
Yeah.
But I think any keyword tool would be fine for
Mhm.
that purpose.
Let's go to Nikita. What do you suggest in terms of using machine learning models in the app in terms of cost? Should have own ecosystem or for models or go for API calling? I mean, you have to build your own business plan in terms of cost and what do you expect as traffic and what you expect as feature requests for your app. So this is related to your business plan. So you have to select what is best for you in terms of cost, obviously, and effectiveness. So you don't have to waste your time building something else that is already out there for a good cost. So Hisham question. I currently have 2 App Store developer account, which is dangerous. On the 30% commission rate. I'm considering applying for the program, also acquiring a third developer account. Should I wait until I have the third account to apply, or you will have to certify Apple that you are not involved in any other account? I don't know if you can do this. It's very dangerous because they will know at some point that you have 3 accounts from the same computer. They will know that. I know someone who got banned. Should
So
I apply now
what's
with
the
2?
purpose, and why do you want to have yeah, I guess why do you want to have all these accounts?
Do you have 3 apps making more than 1 million combined and you want to separate them? Because other than that, it doesn't make any sense.
What
Hisham, why you are looking to acquire 3 accounts? Can you explain your point in the chat? Because 3 accounts is dangerous, and the 3 of them will get banned if you do this. This is useless. You are trying to optimize something dangerous. Don't do that. So either the 3 with 30%, maximum 15% only in one. And what you are doing now is useless. Unless you tell me that you have more than $1 million coming in each month from Apple and you want to play this, but don't play this game. Hisham? Yeah. Yeah, it is allowed, of course, to have multiple accounts,
Yeah, I think you
but
just have
not
to
on
let them know.
commission.
No, you have to let them know about it, and then I
Maybe
think
open a support ticket and ask them. It's the safest way, and explain why you have 3 accounts. If they say no, you don't do it. If they say yes, do it.
so. Yeah, and I'm still curious. Like, what's the reason? Is it they're just different companies that have different products, or
Yeah. Why? Hisham.
why do why do you want to do that?
So we have 1 minute left for the call. Hisham, write down write down your story in the group,
Oh,
and he didn't
so I
answer
guess
yet, but
before we end, I just want to make sure.
yeah, give us your
One thing I
last.
forgot to share was that
Yeah.
um a um a technique that's helped me is in terms of targeting, so in terms of my ASO, there are 10 different, I try to optimize for the US mostly, and there are 10 different localizations that get indexed in the US, it's US, Spanish, Mexico, Vietnam, Russia, so on. And so I utilize all of them aggressively, and I try to look for the lowest competition keywords that I can that have decent traffic, and I'll try to create different combinations of titles. I mean, especially the titles. It's hard to create enough metadata for all of them, like unique metadata, but I'll try my best to really utilize them all, and that helps a lot just in terms of ranking for as much as like I'll outrank a lot of people just because of that, and it
Yeah.
makes it easier. Like once I start making revenue, to rank for a lot of stuff. So I would definitely try to maximize those localizations, and you can
So I
find
have
them.
I have one
Oh, go
last
ahead.
question for you. If I ask you what is the most rewarded thing that you got from the group, what would that be? What did
You
you
said,
learn from the group? Like one thing, one or two things. Name anything you have in mind right now.
so
I don't.
I loved the master class, I guess just on doing the research, just the database system that you use to figure out which opportunities that you want to pursue. Um, Smart Look, Crisp Chat, just, for me, it's just being able to see the way that you think. And then besides that, it's always great to talk to other people who are going through the same process.
Okay. So we have one last question from Hisham again, which is, what is the minimum traffic you are interested to choose you like to look for when you're choosing keyword?
Yeah, I like 30 and up for a traffic
Mobile action,
score. What's that?
mobile action 30 and up.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think that they're using the search score from Apple. I think
Okay.
that's what they're using.
Okay.
And then in terms of competitiveness, I'll just, I'll just try to get their they have a column called chance, and I'll try to get that as high as possible. So
Okay.
if I see something like 90 or above, I'm like, okay, I need that one for sure. If it's in the 80s, that's still great. In the 70s, that's still pretty good.
Yeah.
Below that, it gets tougher. But like one thing is that once you're ranking for a few good keywords, I think it makes it easier to rank for some of the harder ones, especially if you're making some money.
Okay. Nice. Thank you, Moyo. We are 2 minutes after the official time, so let's keep the conversation going in the group. And
Yeah.
thank you, everyone, for your time.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye bye, Moyo.
All right, bye-bye.